Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. Kyle Fergusson is here, as he always is, and rejoining us. It's been a little bit. Yeah. But rejoining us today is NotParadox. Dude, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. It's always a blast whenever I come in, so I appreciate it.
It's a good week. There's a few things happening in Heroes of the Storm. We may have gotten our first hero in half a year.
Yeah, we may have.
On top of an extremely divisive anomaly.
I'm sorry. Oh.
Audio listeners are missing out on Kyle laughing and then literally walking out of frame as he laughs because he's at a standing desk. Dude, before we get into the hot topics of the Nexus at the moment, how has Heroes been for you? You've been doing a ton of casting.
Oh yeah, it's been a lot of fun. The CCL was a blast. I was so glad to be able to participate, able to cast that. Then at the same time, I've been watching a lot of Method Madness, which was the Europe cast. They had Tetcher, they had Kaldor, they had a bunch of these teams. A lot of like old pro players came back and they're still playing, which is crazy. Like they all came back for this event and now they're all like, we forgot how fun this was. And the same thing kind of is happening in North America right now. I don't know if you've noticed, like a couple days ago, yesterday, all of Heroes Hearth was playing. The old Heroes Hearth team, Crowan, Homie, like all of them were playing. And I've just been kind of just enjoying all of this, watching them all play, seeing them rehash old stuff, having them all excited to play these new characters. And I mean, I've just been having fun playing May mainly, but she's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like her kit. We talked quite a bit about it last week. But I'm curious, like last week I was going on and on about how much I like May's kit because it feels like old school Heroes to me. And I realize it's also kind of a greatest hits. Like it's a little bit of a couple different tanks, but I just like that she kind of feels like an older hero in terms of the kit. It's not super flashy, like high mobility, like a Genji or something. There's something about the way May plays that just feels like she could have been here since the tech alpha.
Yeah, I could completely agree with that. I mean, her E, I've been saying like her E just feels like a Nubrox E, but with different limitations and different like things, different benefits to it. And then her Q seems, to me, it feels a little underwhelming, but it does kind of do a little bit of a setup like Blaze a little bit, where it's like Blaze, you throw out the oil to slow people, then you have a better shot at like landing your other abilities. And it kind of feels the same a little bit, even though Blaze isn't really old school. But it's kind of more of like a old school version of what Blaze has because it's just one ability that's just a slow. So I could definitely agree with that. I think her Blizzard on W is like my favorite thing.
It's
like,
great.
I don't know what it is. It's like when they switched that from an ult to a W, I was like, this is interesting, but like, it's very satisfying. It's one of those that like when it works and if you can find a way to like get creative with it, it's so satisfying just to have that like, and everyone's stunned. It's like, yeah. And that person's stunned. Like everyone's like, did I get out in time? Nope, you're stunned. So it's like that ability is very satisfying.
Yeah, it was one of those that just like from an art standpoint, like the first time I used it, I was like, oh, well done. Like it just has great effects. The robot, I don't know what a robot's name is, but like very
Snowball.
Well animated. Is it called Snowball?
Yeah, but I think it overlaps with everything else on her kit. So yeah.
How could I forget which Frosty reference her robot's name?
Her abilities too are named funny. Icing is her E, right? It's like yeah. All of her abilities are named funny.
It's really accurate because she's not skating; she's using ice to skate. So it's icing. Like, I get it. I get it. But my brain like hits a speed bump every time I try and recall the name from memory. It's just like what? Like the cake?
So. Yeah, that's what I always think. Icing, like the cake, and I'm like, I guess it does kind of look like icing, but It is interesting.
Yeah. Well, before we get too deep into it, we want to thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. There's quite a few perks to be had by signing up over there, including things like an ad-free feed when we have ads on the show, access to our Discord, signing up for our patron games. We're doing those tonight, by the way. And also, you help us pay our guests. Every single guest we have on Into the Nexus, we pay them, unless they're like a dev, because I don't think they're allowed to get paid for stuff like that. AZ Jackson, let me know.
That'd be a bribe, yes.
yeah, but all community guests get paid for their time, and it's because of your support over at patreon.com/ITN that we can do that. And also, you just support Kyle and myself, so thank you very much. Go check it out. And to our most recent patrons, thank you so much to TT Porky. Played a game with you last night, dude. That was the easiest game on Lee Ming I've ever played in my life, because I get to just be an aggressive jerk. Also, thank you to Stampa Queerden and Rachel and Ray. All together. Rachel and Ray together supporting Into the Nexus, connected by an and. So, thank you very much, everybody, for your support. Check it out, patreon.com/ITN. Let's get into it. This week's Heroes of the Storm news.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
So it's May. It's May's launch week. She's here. We've been waiting a while. Already talked about how much we like her kit. You said you've been playing a lot of her Paradox?
Yeah. I mean, I played a decent amount on the PTR, played a decent amount on live. She's fun.
Yeah.
So where do you land on the broken OP sort of scale? Because I've heard many different opinions this week.
That's a tricky thing to like say right away. I think that she's one of those that could use a few tweaks, especially in the talent department. I think there's a couple talents that outshine a couple. But as far as like, she definitely has counterplay. Like, she doesn't feel like, to me, she feels like a tank that's just kind of like, okay, you don't really need to answer her specifically. Like, you know, when you play against a Garrosh, you're like, we should probably bring like an Anduin, or we should probably bring someone who can like eat the throw or something like that. Like, you want to bring an answer because he brings something that's like a huge threat. Or then you see his armor mechanic and you go, well, let's counter it with this. Like, I feel like Garrosh is strong, but has like obvious counters. And I think like Diablo is the same way. I feel like with May, you don't really need to look very hard for like a counter, because she doesn't seem like she's doing like something absolutely crazy, but she does seem a little strong for what she is doing, because she has an engage kind of like a Nubrak. You can't go over walls, so it's a little bit weaker, but she has an engage kind of like a Nubrak. Like, I just play her like a Nubrak these days. Like, I tried the other builds, I'll talk about that, but I honestly just play her just like a Nubrak, where I go in with E, and then I'll use my avalanche as kind of a cocoon, and I'll send someone off. And then I just after my engage, we usually take out one person and then we back off. And like, avalanche is a similar cooldown to cocoon. That's just my play style right now. Is like, I play her pretty much like a Nubrak. And to me, it's like, she's a tankier Nubrak that can't go over walls. So it seems like a pretty decent trade-off, in my opinion.
I think of her as an ETC that's forced the face melt at the end of the power slide, but with a much longer power slide. Like, that's where my brain goes. But I didn't think about Avalanche as like a makeshift cocoon. And you're absolutely right. That's
a lot of things.
It is a lot of things. Her
Haymaker,
ults are like everything. It's crazy.
Man, I've been thinking of her as Johanna with Nazebo skills, basically in the walling. You can deny area for a time, and you force people to choose if they want to walk through the storm and be stunned, or completely miss out on what's going on.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. Like, when I first started playing her, I was like, she's just like Joanna. And with her W, like, I was taking the talent at 1, which increases the final damage on your W. And like, that helps out with wave clear a decent amount. So I just play her kind of like Joanna. I just go from lane to lane and just clear up those. And I do the zoning the same way. And that it is definitely like that. So for me, it's like, I feel like she has like the wave clear I need from Joanna, maybe not as good. And then she has the engage that I love from Anubarak. And then it's just like, And again, it's not quite as good, but it's like you take like the not quite as goods from both of those. But when you put them together, it's like it really fits what like a Nubrak is missing, and it really fits what like Johanna is missing. So it's like you get a weaker version of like the mix of those two. But yeah, I think it's funny because it's like we've all used different examples of tanks, and it's like, and I completely agree. It's like she does feel like just kind of a mix of all the other tanks. Like they didn't, it sounds kind of maybe bad a little bit. It feels like they didn't take a lot of risks, but at the same time, it's like, I would rather that than end up with like the Mei kit from Overwatch where she's just incredibly annoying.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like she's that annoying, and she feels rather fun to me.
I mean, you can
So I don't
listen.
know.
You can listen to back catalog episodes of the show over the years, and anytime like even the whiff of May, like a hint of it gets dropped, I go, "Oh, please no, just no," because like I haven't played Overwatch in a really long time, but I found her beyond obnoxious when I did, and so I was just so worried about it. Also, I didn't see her as a tank coming. Like that to me was a surprise, and so there's so much of this that I look at as a success. And one part we haven't talked about is the fact that she isn't annoying. In my opinion, it sounds like yours as well, Paradox. There was some cool restraint being made, and it's like our last hero was Deathwing. Deathwing was super weird and took a lot of risks. So I'm personally very happy that May just like makes sense. It's like, hey, what else are you into? Do you play guitar? Well, you go get a new one. It probably works or functions more or less the same way that you're used to with some added tweaks. Same thing goes for cars. Like you need to know how to interface with it.
It's great for this time period in the game. I mean, we had our Blaze and Yrel that didn't match our needs for a tank, and people have a lot of other games to play. This is an older game, so coming out with a kit that I feel like I can click with immediately week one is just delightful.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Now I'm getting into some back and forth with folks as to whether or not she can main tank and we can go heavy bruiser, let's say like a Malthael, like something that is just not gonna off tank, as it were. Where do you land on that? Is this Johanna, or is it like Stitches where it's living so long it deals enough damage that all the Mays think they're damage and we need a tank?
I mean, as far as bruiser, what, like, I guess my question is always like, what does a bruiser need to do? Like, if you look at like Blaze and you go, okay, well, Blaze was a very common bruiser in the competitive scene back in HGC, but the reason for it was that he could double soak and he brought bunker to the table. So now you look at the other bruisers that don't bring bunker to the table and you go, well, what do they bring that we need? Yrel brings a backline disruption, even if she doesn't necessarily kill anyone, but she does a decent amount of damage. Like, she can definitely get some kills, but for the most part, she opts in the backline. She's a disruption. She forces like a 1v3 that she can out heal, or at least hold for a long period of time. And then her team will usually win that 4v2, allowing her team to just win. Can May do that as well? Maybe. A bruiser May could probably do that, could probably disrupt in a 1v3 for a long enough amount of time. Maybe if things start getting a little scary, she pops her wall, uses icing to get out, and she could do exactly what Yrel can do. I think the one downside is that if you're going to be going a bruiser May, the talent you want to take on one is going to be the talent that doesn't help with your wave clear. And one big issue about like the soul lane right now is so often as you start winning the objective or losing the objective, you go back to start double soaking. If you're on Volsky and you're already winning, you double soak. If your team wins the objective, you double soak. If the enemy team wins the objective, you double soak. And that's something that the soul lane is just doing now. And I'm afraid that like as a soul laner, she's going to really struggle with that. And if you think about the maps you don't need to double soak, are maps like BOE, and her race is awful. Or maps like Hanamura, and it's like she could probably do okay on that map, but I don't think she has anything that's like really that great. So I guess it really comes down to the question of like, why do you want to pick her as a bruiser rather than picking her as a tank that just stays alive for a long time? Because I think there's a lot of potential to that bruiser build still in the main tank role. Like, ignore the Anubrak playstyle for a little bit and like act as if May is Mal'Ganis, even though we're mentioning another tank that she could be. She has that build where like you take heat transfer on one, which is let me pull it up so I can read everything for you guys. I've got hot slugs pulled up. Heat transfer is where you basic attack stunned, rooted, slowed enemies. You do 33% more damage, but it's not even that. It's each time Mei stuns or slows an enemy, she heals for 18 health. Well, that build, you can heal just about as much as Mal'Ganis because your W procs multiple times per second and it slows each time. Then on later levels, you can take a talent like Polar Vortex, where every time you use an ability, you deal 24 damage, which again 24 damage per second for 4 seconds. Again, that damage is not the real piece of it. It's that whenever they are hit by Polar Vortex, they're slowed by 20%. So when you combine both of those talents together, you can heal for like your entire health bar very, very quickly. And so it's like you would think that would be a great bruiser build because it's like, oh, you're like Malthael but tanky. But it's like, again, why don't you just run that in the main tank role? So I do think that she can solo lane. I just think that with her low damage, you need to have a really good reason why. After all that, sorry, that was a very long thing.
No, yeah. that was great. That was great. So if anything, then it maybe is more like that Mal'Ganis, Johanna, where we are sitting on top of 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going bad, they're dying to Diablo, and you're looking back behind your shoulder being like, what's going on back there?
Yeah.
I've got the whole team here. So maybe we do need to make sure we run that aggressive bruiser. And you mentioned the double soak. That's an interesting idea, but maybe that Thrall or Malthael more so, can pull that off while still deleting the Diablo ETC who's on everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much Mal'Ganis's playstyle for the last, 6 months is just sleep the front line, go in the back line, and then hope that your team kills their tank before you die because you usually out-heal stuff. And that's been the playstyle, and she could have that playstyle with heat transfer and icing. I think the one downside is it's a little easier to sleep the front line than it is to use your E past the front line. But I mean, time will tell. Depends on how good people get at interrupting your icing. But at the same time, yeah, it's like I think you could make her a bruiser and play a little bit like Yrel, where you just go in the back line, you just disrupt for long periods of time. But I feel like Yrel just does it better.
But by and then you've got that burden of damage too when you take Mei. And again, I'm seeing Mei's brag or complain at the end of games that I'm top damage. What's wrong with everybody? And all I can think of is Stitches saying I'm top damage. Well, you're the one surviving long enough to do any damage. Therefore, you've succeeded in getting that out.
Yeah. And Mei's actually really good at peeling, especially peeling off melee heroes, because one of the first few games that I played with her, we were getting just stomped by divers because I would dive in, they would dive in, and then we would just lose the team fight. I'm like, what is happening? I started just throwing Blizzard on my team and then diving in, and no one wanted to go in and attack my backline. I just threw the Blizzard in my backline. They were all safe. I saw the Greymane sitting on the edge of Blizzard just getting blown up by our mage because he didn't want to go in. And I was like, she's surprisingly good at peeling. And then worst case, after the Blizzard ends, just chuck an avalanche back there and then head in and continue doing what you were doing.
And if that's not working, you gotta blind on your Q. If Fury Varian for some reason just hangs out long enough that he still is after that Blizzard lands, blind him out of it and he's dead. I had a great time zoning for Zul'jin this week in a game.
Yeah,
I got frozen multiple times in some quick match games last night. Just still getting used to what to look for when I'm focusing in a team fight. And if you actually get frozen by the Blizzard, God, it feels bad. You get stuck for a bit, and the freezing animation is a really good shot call. It's really noticeable that someone got frozen. So even in a pickup game, a quick match where no one's on comms, they're gonna turn on you, especially if you're me and you're on a mage.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's also such an underrated point is how obvious that freeze is and how important. Like you mentioned, how that's a big shot calling tool in itself. I've been trying to explain how ETC's slide is the same duration as Varian's taunt, but it's just never followed up as well. And I think the idea is with Varian, you see him charge in, he makes a lot of noise, he then taunts, and there's a big show every time that happens. And I'm like, that that's the big difference between it. They stun the same amount of time. Taunt lasts 1.25 seconds, ATC slide lasts 1.25 seconds, but one makes a show about it, you know? And it's like, that's why it's usually followed up when the other one isn't. And it's the same idea with that, is you just brought it up, is like that big frozen hero is it's made more of a show than something like Deckard's Root, which they both last the same amount of time. But Deckard's Root doesn't always show as well as that big frozen hero.
Yeah, it's a rallying cry. It's something to get behind. It's super obvious. So
I did notice some really good counters this week when I was playing, things that kind of caught me off guard. I agree, like great against the melees for bopping them around and ruin them. And then of course you got the blinds, but it's weird that your utility build is also your blind build, because that's where you end up with all those snowball talents, like turning off towers and cute stuff like that. So you're less tanky, and you're also investing into the blinds. And I feel like because of those Johanna-like shieldings, free auto attacks are what get you down. Anything that owns Leoric, who leaves his body behind when you're hanging out in cryo freeze, those were the things that got kills on me. Mages, other than maybe Junkrat, who shot over me, and that even wasn't that big of a deal, no problem. I've got the shields, I've got the healing to recover during their time of burst. But stacking build Sylvanas, Vala, didn't fight Tychus, but maybe.
Yeah, I think Tychus would be rough. Like you'd need to use your trait like at a really weird time, because like he could melt you down. Like that is the thing that I think also throws me off the most, especially since I have played a lot of Overwatch, is like your trait is different from the Overwatch one. You are not untargetable, and that also throws me off from the other ice blocks too, because the one thing that's like messed me up a few times is damage over times. I'm so used to ice blocks removing damage over times, so like I'll quickly, like if I'm playing Jane and I get a damage over time on me, like sometimes I'll just pop ice block and turn it off because it's 40-second cooldown. I remove the damage over time and I continue going. Her ice block's weird, because I had this one time where normally when you ice block, you'll see like your shield, and then you'll see like a light green bar to show how much you're going to heal. And I had so many damage over times on me because we were against a Gul'dan and a Lunara, that when I popped my trait, all I had was an orange bar, nothing left, like nothing else, just an orange bar. And it was just that the shield that I got was already going to be taking its entire damage from that, and I was taking more damage than what I was going to heal. And it was just like all I had was that orange bar, and I was like, this does not feel good. And then I got hit by the Lunara, and I pressed trait, and then Gul'dan, while I was standing still, hit me with 4 of the things. It was, I mean, of course, only 3 hit, but it's like it was the 2, and then it bounced back and hit me twice again, and I was like that's a lot of damage over time. And then I got out of ice block, and I'm like, and it's staying with me no matter where I'm going. So like, I don't know if that's a counter, but it sure felt bad to have all this damage over time on me and like no way to remove it.
I mean, that is a very specific comp, but
it felt bad.
That is
that is interesting though. Yeah, because you got your shielding. Like I've had a blizzard dropped on me this week by a Jaina, and you go, okay, fine, no big deal. But those damage of times lasting longer than the shield itself. That's so maybe she's countered by sustain then.
I think sustain damage is like, she does have that build that out sustains a lot, but I think in general, if you look at her build, is going to be the real way to like really look at who counters her and why. Because if you go the sustain build, she needs to get really close to people to get that like that spin. And the thing about that spin, and again, I'll get the talent name just so everyone knows, Polar Vortex. If you see that, it's a small range. It's actually smaller than her basic attack range, which is awkward because you can't just you can't attack someone to get this like effect going. Like Murden's Bronzebeard's Rage. You just right click on someone, you're always getting value off of that. With Polar Vortex, you can't do that. You have to right click past them so that you can always stay on them. So that's a little clunky, but if you're ever playing against her, if you stay away from her in that build and you just burst her, that she's done. And on the other build, like the more Nubrock style build or the the more ETC style build. I think you're right. I think sustain is the way to deal with her, because she doesn't have any like long-term healing. She has her trait and that's it. So it's like, if the trait doesn't do it, and if you're just sustaining her down, that trait it's only going to do so much, then you just sustain her down again. So I do think sustain is what feels the worst to play against most of the time. And even in that polar vortex build, if you do sustain damage and you can stay away from her, that's it. So I do think sustained damage is definitely the way, which lines up with most of the other tanks, honestly. I mean, most other tanks in the game can handle burst and can use their heal to get back up. Like Garrosh, it's like he burst against him, then he just uses his W, he's healed back up. Stitches burst, he just presses his E, he's back up. ETC uses an ability to get armor so that he can eat the burst and then also slowly heal back up. But sustain is what really melts most of these tanks. So she definitely lines up with the other tanks.
So are we circling the drain to she fits in a lot of different places? Like, is she in Master of None territory?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say so. I mean, I think her ults are the only thing that it's not that I'm on the fence about it. It's that I feel like there's a lot of potential that I just don't know if we have like the coordination or the thought process. Like I can't think of like a time where I need to do like something really crazy with her ult, but it's like her ice block, I'm looking at it going like, okay, this is like Leyline and Void Prison, but like, do I even need to think that far ahead? So there are probably times where she is the master of certain engages. I just haven't quite figured out the engages yet that she's the master of. But I do think you're probably right that she is kind of on that area of like more jack of all trades rather than master of a specific thing. But I do think there is like a world. I just haven't like figured it out yet. I do think that like her ice block, like, is there a world that you use it to like lock down all of the backline and then run like a Tychus to just melt down the two tanks that aren't frozen and they're stuck in front of that wall? Like, what, like, is that the engage that she just wins in? Is like, normally with like, she is the master of front to back compositions. Like, what? I don't know. But as it stands, I think that she is just a solid tank for a wide variety of situations.
Yeah, I don't look at that as necessarily a bad thing. Like, I play Rexar more than anything else, for crying out loud. I clearly love heroes that are good at most things, but maybe not specialized. So, like, that's not a bad thing for me. It's probably part of the reason I like Mei so much. Is I'm getting very much that sensation from her kit. So, well, let's move on and talk about the anomaly then. The weather update is here with some changes from what we talked about last week, Kyle. Did you just check behind a curtain?
I did. My cat is back there and he's waking up.
Oh. I was like, are you looking for the anomaly? What are you trying to do there, buddy?
No, man. No, this guy's waking up. He was getting busy, so I got to excuse him from the podcast room.
Oh, Karth. Okay. Let's let him out.
Yeah, it was just like, looked. We're gonna be talking about anomalies, and he looks behind his curtain. I'm like, what is anomalies doing to you?
As you can see on this whiteboard I've prepared.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna have like some sort of reveal. Well, Garrett, as you see here, I have scientifically proven that you should stop being such a whiner.
No, the only thing I can prove is behind this curtain, I didn't really take advantage of any anomalies, and they just sort of happen. And outside of increasing my lane clear, I still have no opinion.
Yeah, but dude, now that it's in the live game and I don't have to wait like forever or just play against bots because I want to just see it in action, it doesn't affect me. Like, I forget it's there.
Yeah.
With the one except the storm shield anomaly is the rainstorms is the only one that I really notice. Sometimes I notice the foggy mist when players are taking advantage of it, but it really just comes down to rainstorms. Like, that's the only one. Like, people get bloodthirsty when those lightning shields go out.
But let's do this in the right order. Let's pretend we didn't say anything yet, Paradox.
Okay.
What's your opinion of the weather?
Right now it's like 115 degrees outside, so I would say
oh my god.
in Vegas. No, so it's interesting. I think snow flurries for the most part, I think, are the ones that they feel the least impactful because they affect both teams. It's shields. It's not that much. I mean, realistically, because it's flat shields and not percentage shields, it should help out lower health heroes more. So if you happen to draft a little bit squishier, then snow is great for you. Lightning is weird. And I say it's weird because it adds damage to everyone. Like, I remember someone messaged me and they said, like, it literally, the message went like this. They were like, man, lightning's going to be crazy for Greymane. 30 minutes later, he messaged me and said, oh, it affects them too. I got destroyed. And I just thought about that, and I was like, and I was actually AFK at the time. I came back and I saw those comments, and I was like, so you can literally tell exactly what went through his mind. Like, oh, I get to add more damage, which means that I can dive in wolf form, and I can add more damage to my dive. But then it also affects the person that he's diving and increasing the speed that he's dying too. So it's a really weird one. So that one, if we just take it as far as team fights go, it helps tanks more than it helps everyone else, because tanks can take a little bit of extra damage. And at the same time, if they're dealing more damage, because most tanks are melee range, then they will do better. So Snow Flurries should be helping backline more. The electricity should be helping tanks more. But electricity is also a little bit of RNG in the sense that if you get it at the time that you need more wave clear, or that you get it at the time that you need more camp clear, or if you have a team that doesn't run a lot of camp clear and you get it, it's more valuable for you than another team. Now, there's a little bit about that that's not RNG, because there's the draft, right? Which is like, if you know what map it's going to show up on, because we have that list, then you could say, oh, we don't need to draft as much wave clear on this map because we're going to be getting the electricity until you don't have it. So it's weird. The electricity one throws me off the most. The mist, I was like, this one I think is going to be the highest degree of, like, either people are going to abuse it like crazy or people are going to just completely forget that it exists. And in CCL last night was kind of the best example of that. Vipey, every time that the fog happened, he was trying to make a play, and like everyone else just ignored that it existed. But Vipey, every time that he could get stealthed, he was out there trying to stealth, hiding in a corner, making sure that the stealth went like the extra duration so that people can't see you anymore. And like he was trying to make a play all the time. And then like the 9 other players in there just like completely forgot it was a thing. Like he was literally just a garage, stealth garage, sitting in the middle of a lane, and people just walked right up to him and he just chucked him into the team and started doing stuff. And I'm like, so I'm leaning towards the majority of these are going to help tanks more than everyone else, with the exception of like Snow. And I think Snow is going to be, we forget about it because it affects both teams equally. Foggy Mist is like, you got to remember that it exists, but you might not be able to make too many plays with it because stealth is still visible unless like you're getting really creative with it. But the one that I think throws me off the most is that electricity, because it affects everyone and it really can shift fights. It's a lot of extra damage that just goes out that you almost can't predict, because you're watching like, okay, well, Greymane can do this much and I can do this much, and then like there's just all this extra damage out there. So I mean, it's that one's the one that really throws me, of like, how much impact is it actually bringing, and is it RNG? If that starts at a fight at a time that you were winning, but then like you have more range, or you have, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's definitely a weird one.
It's hard to assess guaranteed value, like outside of what you brought up in talking about wave clear and camp clear in regards to rainstorms, which I think is a really good example, or a really good point to bring up. But the fight aspect of it, the fact that it affects both teams, I'm like, last week I was very harsh on this. And like my my reaction now is that like I don't hate it as much because I think it isn't very effective. So
Yeah.
I'm not as mad as I thought I was going to be because it really hasn't done anything. Like my games really haven't shifted or changed because of this anomaly, and I don't want them to, so I'm pleased.
Yeah.
Well, they're very specific, like that Garrosh instance. Most tanks can't afford to go into stealth because you are a visual indicator of where the team fight's going to happen. Like Johanna stealths and starts wandering around the enemy team. Your whole team's going,
like, should we be going in now or should we be waiting until she's an ability? It's like, what do we do there? Like, you are like Garrett mentioned, like, there's a big indicator a lot of times in these fights. And it's like, you may be confusing your team. It's like, especially when Garrosh was just sitting stealth there for so long, it's like, should we be sitting there with you? Or because like if you throw someone and we're not there, you don't get a kill. But at the same time, it's like we don't want to just be wasting time. So it is kind of a weird issue with that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really want them to affect my games too much, but at the same time, it's like I also don't want them to just like do nothing. Like I think that's the only reason that I kind of like Foggy Mist. If it was just like a new map mechanic for like one map, you know, like, oh, that's just now a thing on this map, Bush's stealth. But I do think the only one out of all of these that like actually concerns me is the electricity, especially even like for sleep heroes. Like you're playing Mal'Ganis and it's like, oh well, there goes your E.
well, it did get a little less. I still don't like the RNG statement because there is a lot of control around here. We're not targeting random targets. Everyone gets the thing at the same time. But they did go through the official notes for this release and update them to be more exact, and they remove some of the wiggle room on the activation of the actual weather. So we're now to every 4 minutes, with the first event starting at the beginning of the match. Each weather lasts 2 minutes. So instead of that 2 minute to 2 minute 30, it's now 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, and no longer periodically, just that's the set rhythm for the rest of the match. They went through rainstorms and made it so that we now are aware of the time, which is 25 to 40 seconds. They reduced the movement speed from 25 to 15, and they decreased the lightning damage by about 17.
Okay. So that's reasonable. Honestly, if this is an anomaly for one season, I'm cool with it. I don't mind messing around with it. I don't know if I would like rainstorms to stay around. I don't really know about snow flurries. After watching CCL, I kind of like the stealth on maybe one map. If they were to keep any of them, I kind of think it would be fun to leave that just permanently on one map. Like a map that doesn't have a lot of bushes, but like the bushes do create stealth. Like I think that's interesting. So it's like I would be perfectly fine if they left that on like just Tube and the Spider Queen, you know, that's like just to see what happens.
Interesting. I started to have that thought too, that some of these would be interesting as battleground specific,
like Volskaya for snow.
Yeah, right. Like a battleground specific thing, and not something that we're just forcing across the entire game. Like I think at the end of the day, you could make the argument that it's all arbitrary, or it's all forced, or it's not, or whatever. But to me, like, I think more of my initial pushback towards this was towards the odd homogenization that it brought than I realized, that I had played a decent amount of games with this against real people. Because I started to have the same thought that I don't think I would hate these as much as I thought I was going to if they were like put rainstorms on one battleground and keep it there. Same for Snow Flurry, same for Foggy Mist. Like I said, like give stealth on Spider Queen, Snow Flurries on Volskaya, and rainstorms on, I don't know, we don't really have like a good swampy map, but let's just call it Cursed Hollow for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, it looks good on Towers of Doom. Fog.
Yeah. My other thing is too, as I'm trying to accept this, is that I really don't like that there's no indication of like how long the shields are going to last or when they're going to strike. Because I think that having that information would be more interesting from a tactics standpoint. because instead it's just like, I don't know, maybe lightning will strike now. Did it? Nope. Okay, we're just going to move forward with this team fight as expected. Like, there's just, I don't know. I think it would add another layer that would actually be interesting and something that you could act upon. Like you were talking about, the way that the lightning shields increase like your camp clear. If you know it's coming up, it's just like, hey, let's adjust our camp timing because we know when we're about to get struck by lightning. And I don't know. For like, my gut feeling is it would be more interesting to have that information than the way it currently is, which is to not have it.
Well, you're just thinking about it wrong. See, what you need to do is go take a camp with stitches, and it takes so damn long.
I know,
the lightning is guaranteed
2 minutes anyways. Eventually you're gonna get struck by lighting.
Kyle, your mistake there is you pick stitches.
Yeah. I've always been a firm believer of like more information is good, right? It's been like the thing that like I've been pushing for that for a long time about like I'll go play League and like after a game, like you can see a million different stats, right? You can see like how much vision you had. You can see how many CCs you did. All the things that are like that sometimes pop up on the MVP screen where it's like, oh, you rooted someone for 200 seconds. Like you can see all of that. As well as you can see how much damage you took, how many deaths you had, how much self-healing you had, how much healing to allies you had, how much shielding to allies you had, how much shielding to yourself you had. I've been a firm believer that HOTS has that information, and I would love to have that at the end of every game. I don't think that the scoreboard necessarily means a lot as far as like what truly happened that game, but the little bits do help out a lot. And to add to that, I think what your point is that you want to know, when does that shield drop? Yes, it lasts for 2 minutes, but how long has this 2 minutes been? You know, because sometimes it's hard to tell. And you could probably just look at the timer, because if it starts at 0 and you always start with the 2 minutes, then technically every even
it starts at
number,
4.
Like,
I think, Kyle, you said 2 and 2, but it's actually it lasts for 2 minutes and it's off for 4 minutes.
So you could okay, yeah, so every 4 minutes. So it's like you could like pay attention, and every map would have like a thing, which means that like so if we were to if it starts on and it lasts for 2 minutes, that means that it's going to be off at 2 minutes, which means for the first objective of the game it's going to be off, because the first objective starts at 3 minutes. So there will not be snow for the first, the first 3 minutes of the first objective. So it's like you could technically plan it out on every single map, but like just having a timer would be great for the people that don't want to go through and find the exact times on every single map, because I can't even tell you how many maps people don't know when things spawn. And it's general for most maps, like camp spawn at 1 minute. Objectives usually spawn at 3 minutes, but it's like there's a lot of information on maps that we don't know, and there's a lot that we don't want to have to go through and memorize each little thing. So just having a timer that's like, okay, snow's going to start in 15 seconds, so that you could kind of plan that out and go, this would be a great time to fight. This would be a great time to go for we're about to get electricity. This would be a great time to see if we can sneak boss, like, because we could rip a boss fast if 5 people have electricity. I don't think electricity spawns on any map with bosses, but you get the point. Is like, if we had a timer, it would be better, and you don't need to go through and like individually tear apart each game and go, or each map and go, okay, so we're going to have it between this time and this time, which means this and this. It's like more information is better.
There are things that make me think this is extremely tactical and thought out. To your last point, that's an interesting idea about the bosses. Rain does happen on Sky Temple, Warhead Junction, Braxis Holdout, and Blackheart's Bay, if we count that boss as well. So there's actually quite a few bosses there. Yeah, so maybe that was intended. Right. But what is also intended, and we might be able to read into, is that snow flurries don't happen on any 2-lane maps. And I found that snow flurries actually had a rather large effect on my poke heroes that win solo lanes. So, for example, let's say Greymane versus Arthas in the solo lane. Odd matchup, but hey, solo queue, right? It happens.
I mean, it happens.
It's not insane. I dodge your cocktail because I'm in control of where you splash, but I get to right click you with Death Coil. In that fight, I couldn't wither down the gray main because his shielding was greater than my Death Coil, and I never got an advantage in that lane.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I get what you're saying on 2-lane maps where you generally need to win. What is Dragonshires? Hold on, let me scroll. You guys have all this information.
Dragonshire is a rainstorm map.
Oh, okay. So it's electricity. So, okay. So you don't need to worry about that on Dragonshire either. So yeah, that's probably planned out. Yeah.
We got our Hanamura Battlefield of Eternity and Braxis. So Foggy Mists on 2 of our 2 lanes, and then Rainy is the Braxis holdout.
Also,
Okay.
can we get like damn icons or tooltips for what weather is on which battleground? I'm sick of keeping this window open while I'm playing the game. Not that I have been drafting differently, but if as we start to understand it more, it would be nice to have this information.
I mean, I definitely think that's my biggest issue about this anomaly right now is that we just don't have a lot of information about it. And like even one of the tooltips has been bugged for me almost every time. The snow one always says 224. And then like everyone else is saying, oh, it's 315 now, it's 515 now, it's whatever. Mine always says 224. And it's like I just have no information at all. And the information I have is bugged. And it's like I would just like more information about it is that. So yeah, icons on the map so we know what they are. In draft it should say something because that might change whether or not like what you said, Kyle, like Greymane's gonna have a better chance at winning the solo lane if it's a snow map. So it's like just knowing what they are would be huge. Like if I knew what maps like the rainstorms would always be happening on, I would probably be drafting like more healing. Like I would probably go like Lucio more often than not, because if you take a fight where the lightning triggers for 5 people, I could just pop my ult and movement speed and we just rush in and use the electricity to take everyone out, you know? Because then we have our ult to prevent the damage that their electricity is doing. We have the movement speed. Like I'm like, I feel like I would draft differently, but half the time, yeah, I have to pull up and this is so bad that like I have this info. I pull up the show notes from last week because I still was shared on the show notes from last week, and that's where I've been getting the info whenever I'm playing. Is I've been grabbing it from there because I'm like I don't remember seeing this, and like I know it was in the patch notes, but I just found it easier in the show notes from last week, even though I wasn't on the show. But it's like people need this info, and it needs to be a lot more straightforward. Everything, there just needs to be a lot more info being shown.
No, that's fair. I mean, my argument to counter that would be, well, people don't take advantage of information anyway, so why should we burden the screen with so many moving icons? But at the same time, like, if we did it nicely, like, what if the weather went kind of like tick, 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 like an ability cooldown, and then becomes visible and has some sort of just like something and says, here comes a lightning strike, and then ticks to completion.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of stuff, I don't want another clock on the screen. I don't want the game time, the timer, the level, the like. At a certain point,
I think like that, or like maybe like a gold border that counts around. Like I've seen that on a couple abilities where like when there's like charges for stuff, they'll have like another border that counts around. Even something like that.
Well, and then you could say like, well, what do you want in the draft? Like you wanted to say like this map features a boss and shaman camps. You should be able to memorize that. But at the same time, you have to say that would be kind of nice. Like just a big list. I can hover over it like I can my talents or my load up for my mounts. I can know a bunch of factoids about where I'm about to head.
We mentioned this like I don't even know, a year ago. That like we should have like tags on different heroes that say like wave clear or whatever, and it would be interesting to see if there could be a system where the map showed up and it said this map often requires wave clear, camp clear, whatever, and then it'll glow or something if you have that thing, or it'll go red if you don't have that thing. Like Overwatch has kind of a system like that, or at least they used to, where it would be like no sniper, or it'll be like no healer, or too many snipers, and it'll glow like green, yellow, or red. So if you have like the comp, like the pieces of comp you need, it would show like green for all of this, like, oh, good amount of tanks, good amount of healers. It would show up yellow if like you only had one tank and they're like, you probably need more than one. And it'll show up red that's like, you don't even have a tank. And it'd be interesting to have like a tag system for each map that's like, we would need all of these things, because I feel like in HOTS, a good portion of games are lost purely in draft, because it's like, and I don't know what the actual percentage is. I think you can certainly win with a bad draft. But those are the losses that actually feel bad to me. Like if we lose and it was just because of like misplays or whatever, I'm like, okay, I need to like stop missing my heals on Ana because I'm the worst. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's the game that it's like, I know that I need to improve. But when the game's lost because it's like I'm playing Ana and we just don't have enough wave clear, and I'm sitting there slowly picking at minions because we can't clear the lanes, I'm like, this feels really bad. And a lot of people just don't know that we need that. Like, and there's just only so much you can do. So it's like, I think something like that would also help. But yeah, I mean, realistically, we should all memorize what the maps have to offer, but realistically, that doesn't really happen.
It's a tall order. And yeah. I just said earlier, it's nice that Mei isn't overcomplicated from other heroes, so I can continue playing this game and enjoying Factorio at night, right? Like, if the game's been out a long time, we don't need to be relearning everything. I, of course, love the tag system idea. I would love it if it slowly like glowed certain heroes, or I mean, just go nuts with it to the point where the glow no one has picked a tank, it's final pick. The glow is so large you can hardly find anything else on the screen.
Literally, the tanks glow so large, their icons glow so large that it covers up every other hero.
Yeah, and you're like trying to find.
You have to literally like really look in there so you can find your murky.
Can we please reclassify Stitches before we make this change? Can we do that, please?
He'll be a melee assassin. No. Yeah, I just think like, again, I think the more information would be better. I think that I know all of these are changes that need to be like, they would need to be worked on, of course, but I don't even mind if they're added like, and they're even a little clunky. Like just having that extra stuff, the tags would be awesome. I don't know, just having all that extra stuff would be nice. And I don't know. And also it's more friendly for new players, because that's one of the things that like Here's a Storm, I think, struggles with. There's a lot of random information that people don't know. To the point that like I was listening to this guy who just barely started playing, and we were talking through for about a few hours about a couple different maps because he was wondering about map strategies. He didn't know that escorting in the things on Towers of Doom did 3 extra shots. He didn't know how catapults respawn. He didn't know. I mean, there was just so much he didn't know, and I was like, what? Like, how do you not know all of these things? He's like, I don't know. I did the tutorial. He goes, I played a little bit of AI before I got into normal games. I played normal games with my friends. And he goes, and I started playing ranked. I lost a lot, but I didn't really know what was going on in any of these maps. And it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's still missing. And I'm not saying to have a more extensive tutorial, but maybe just have some more info in some of these games, because new players are really getting confused. And these anomalies are not helping. I think they're just kind of fun to like add random stuff. Like, again, if it's just for a season, I don't care. Let's have some fun with it. But for new players, like, there's so much stuff that's just confusing that I could easily see, especially like players that are coming from League, that they went from having to deal with one map and one map only to now having to deal with 10 different maps, all with different camp placement, different boss placement, different objectives. And also now some of these maps will randomly stealth you. So it's going to be hard to learn the heroes. They're like, oh, so Garrosh has a stealth. And it's like, well, no, Garrosh doesn't have a stealth. But on this map, this map, this map, and this map, he does have a stealth. And they're going to be like, why? So it's like, just some more information for new players would certainly help, because I know some players that have moved over from League that are just like, what is going on?
Can we make a comparison to WoW out of the box here? why does World of Warcraft not have an alert system that raiders use? Is there a game philosophy they've stated?
Oh, like why DBM isn't just like a normal thing? I've never thought about this.
I mean, I don't think boss abilities are ubiquitous enough to make an alert system. Like, yeah, there's don't stand in the poo, but there's a lot of more nuanced and like new-ish boss abilities each time. If that makes sense.
But for instance, I'm a dyslexic. I'm easily overwhelmed by words and bars and things in motion. So for Mother, in the recent expansion for the Mother fight, where there's a lot of stuff flying around, I learned to use my eyeballs and to use basic understanding of what was going on there to dodge everything that happened while also being a healer. And by gathering game knowledge, I was able to execute on it, but I go by another person's stream and it's all bewares and ding dings and telephone noises and just complete. The screen is madness to cover the information on this one boss.
There is a little bit you can do. So I recently started playing WoW again, and I have to say, I love and hate WoW. It is an addictive, bittersweet experience for so many things. I actually really like this expansion, except for like literally 3 things, like the cape, the necklace, and corruption. Outside of that, I do really like this expansion.
I love corruption.
You like corruption? It's cool and it's not. Like, it was cool because I play a prop paladin, and I got like a bunch of that like Twilight Devastation or whatever it's called, and like that's like 50% of my DPS. I literally do like 35k DPS now, and it's just because every once in a while there's like an RNG that like I'll shoot a big thing that like goes and does like 1 million damage. But I didn't have DBM for like well into level 120 because it was just broken. I didn't realize it was broken. And I used the little book. In every boss has this thing that you can go into, and it will say like tank. You open it up and it tells you everything that the tank needs to worry about. It'll say healer and tells you everything that the healer needs to worry about. And I use that. I've main tanked the raids all the way through all of the raids without DBM. The hardest part though was knowing like when to taunt, because like it would say like, oh, don't let the stacks get too crazy. What does that even mean? Is that 2? Is that 7? Is that 14? Is that 56? Because some of these will stack up to 100, and some of these you'll die at 4. Some of these you'll die at 2. And it's like, it's hard to know when you should actually taunt. So it's like, again, there's information that you can kind of gather on your own, but then there's information where like you didn't taunt at 2 and then you get kicked out of the raid. Like there's information that like should be given, and so that's the hard part about saying like, should DBM be just this thing that's added, because HOTS could technically do something like that too. In fact, I got contacted by someone who wanted to do a DBM for HOTS. He was like, why can't we have something that counts down, and there's a little thing that'll pop up and say objective spawns in 1 minute, this is a good time to do this camp. And I was like, I don't know if HOTS would allow that, and I don't know if it'd be worth the time to make it, but like, hey, I'm like, I think people would download it. So I don't know. It's like, should we, because WoW is one of those games that does take a lot of add-ons and just makes them part of the game. Auctions are so much easier. I don't even use Auctioneer anymore, and it's like, you just drag it in, it gives you all the auctions, you pick which one you blow, like,
yeah,
that piece exists.
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's so much, it's a very specific example you brought up, Kyle, but like, you know, DBM is kind of a mess. Like, I can't imagine Blizzard wanting to have an UI element that's kind of just intentionally noisy the way DBM is, and yet they're not against it because if you have it, you're opting in, right? Like, I have it. I use it in WoW because I want that information. I don't care. It's like, you know me, I'm a big interface nerd. I like things to look nice, but at the same time, I also want as much information as I can get.
You also want to taunt at the right time and not get kicked from the raid.
Yes.
This is an experience.
Yes, which is exactly what DBM lets me do when I want to go tank LFR and I haven't studied up on a fight. It's just like, taunt now. Okay, cool. Thanks, DBM. So, I mean, I think we're getting a little too far away here, but yeah, like, yeah. I don't think we're going to agree on where the line is, but I do think that HOTS could still get up closer to where I think like we have enough information provided by the game. And again, Kyle, I feel like I'm really trying to say on this. You know me. You know, I just immediately start eye rolling the second I see a comment somewhere in the community saying, what the HOTS community needs is more education. Like, I don't care what you have to say after I read that comment. I'm out. I'm done. You're basic.
That comment always bothers me. It's like, I'm here trying to educate everyone, but there's a, like, those who listen don't need to be told, and those who need to be told don't listen.
Exactly. It's a pointless exercise.
Add that plus the other thing that's like, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? Like, that, between those two quotes, you figure out what we're supposed to do. I think more information would help, but there's no world that we can keep adding more education, because you either want to learn stuff and you know it, or you don't want to learn stuff and you'll get mad at people when they tell you you're wrong. Like, that's literally, those are the two worlds. And it's also a super nuanced game. Like, is it better to go for like a boss or go for a keep when you kill 5 members? Like, what is the better play? And it's so nuanced that, like, someone's like, we should have gone for boss, and it's like, but we could have ended the game, and it's like, but we couldn't have ended the game because of blank, and it's like, you don't know, because you can't live both worlds, and it just ends up being a game that people argue. So it's like, it's such a frustrating thing when people are like, we need more education. It's like, more education isn't going to help, because a lot of people aren't going to go and like experience it. That is such a frustrating one to read. I feel you.
Yeah. But like, you know, really sitting down and thinking about it from an interface aspect and finding ways to make it easily accessible and convenient in game, I do believe goes a long way.
Yeah.
And vice versa is true. Not having that information, I think, it's just detrimental, because like there are things I still need to go and look up and remind myself of. Like everything in this game, there's all kinds of weird things here and there, and I feel pretty plugged in. Like, yeah. So there's just, I would like, we've gotten really general here, but yeah, I think there's room for improvement in terms of the information that Heroes of the Storm gives you and the guidance it provides.
Oh yeah. Well, and there was even like one thing recently that I brought up that is the most wild thing that I every time I bring it up, everyone's like, I've never heard that, and I never knew it worked that way. So catapults have 5 different scalings. So based on the time of the game is their damage, but their damage to structures scales differently than their damage to heroes, at twice the rate. So to structures is twice as much. Their range, however, levels up based on what level you are. And
you as the owner of the catapult, or you as the defender of the catapult coming towards you?
You as the owner of the catapult. And their movement speed is also different at a certain point. So everything scales differently. Everything scales differently about catapults. So it's like they have different ranges at different levels. They have different damage at different times in the game. And they scale differently based off what they're attacking. So you'll click on a catapult, it'll say 600 damage. It's not 600 damage to your core, because it's actually 1200 damage to your core. The range might be 6 at one point in the game and 11 at another point in the game, based off of your level. And all of this information is so hard to find. And most people, and one of the biggest tips that people share ruins their information of the game. And that is, I'll see this everywhere, and I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying that this affects the information of the game. Everyone says to keybind your attack command to your left click so it's easier to attack and move. So you can right click, left click, right click, left click, right click, left click. And so you can stutter step easier. Not bad advice, except for that your left click is the button that you can click on a minion or a turret or a core or anything. See its attack range, its attack damage, its attack speed, its health, which is very important if you're ever curious about, oh, could I kill this core or kill this keep in one ability? Or do I have to would I die trying to do this? Like, you can click on that, see what its health is, measure up all of your abilities and go, okay, I can kill it in this set of abilities, or I can't actually kill it as fast as I thought. I'm not going to go and suicide there. Yet I still see people suicide on a keep that's at 10% health because I think that they have enough abilities to deal with it. You lose that button, and that's something, but there's even more to it, which is you can only see the differences of damage in a replay. You can't see it in a game. So if you click on a minion, let's say you click on a ranged minion, level 1, ranged minion, does 20 damage to a hero, does 5 damage. Sorry, I'm getting this mixed up. So melee ranged minion, it does 4 sets of damage, 4 different sets of damage. It does 5 to one thing, 20 to another thing, and 122 structures, a ranged minion. It's what? Why are there 4 different sets of damage, but you can only see that in a replay? There's so many little things that it's wild.
So what we need to find is the balance between just some nice text in the draft screen that is there if you want it. The middle ground's probably Bram Bronzebeard yelling at you the whole time. And then the extreme is DBM runaway little girl every time a catapult upgrades.
Yep.
Or just standardize a little bit of stuff. Either make the information more readily available or standardize it a little bit, where it's okay, catapults do the same structure damage, or if you click on a catapult, it says deals double damage to structures, or when a catapult's spawning, it'll say catapults are spawning, careful, they do extra damage to structures or something. I don't know the exact way to do it. I've talked about in WoW, back in Pandaland, there was these not challenge modes, but there were these things you had to do that you had to get silver and healer to be able to get done. Proving grounds, that's what they're called.
I hated them.
I know, but I feel like that would be a pretty cool thing to add to at least teach some more mechanics, and it's just required. You have to get silver to get into ranked. And then gold's just extra gold. You could just earn gold and an achievement by getting gold. And it's and it could teach you if you do the damage one, it says be careful about catapults. They do double damage to structures. Now do your proving grounds and be able to keep these, or as a tank, keep these catapults away from the core while a team fight's going on. While you're also using your abilities to CC for the team fight. Or something where it's a difficult thing that you have to do, but make it tough. If you leave the fight too much, you will lose that fight. But you also need to deal with those catapults. Get creative with the proving grounds, because it's and I know that's so much extra work that this is just a pipe dream and no point in me even going further into it.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. StarCraft had that too. They had challenge missions. I can't remember. I think it was later in Wings of Liberty. It may have been Heart of the Swarm. I don't remember. But they were so quickly irrelevant because of how of balance updates to StarCraft. And I think the same challenge exists for Heroes of the Storm. And on top of the reason that I really hated Proving Grounds and think that the reason they didn't make more of them was because they were crap. But I would assume that, we radically change classes sometimes. And we're going to need to keep that in mind as if we made more of these. There's that type of stuff. I always have a bit of a recoil from stuff like that, because especially in games that have frequent balance passes.
Yeah, I was primarily just thinking for each role to give you a general idea, but I completely agree. For me, when I did it, it was so much easier on a healing druid than it was on a holy paladin when those were around. that it's like it could be one of those things where it's just like, okay, you don't need to learn anything about the game, just do this on Vala, and that's the easiest way to do it there. Pick Lily for this one and you're done. And then like it could just be something like that where there's just like people blow through it, and then we come back to the same issue of like, what's the point of educating the player base when they're going to find the easiest answer for it, you know?
Well, let's expand what we know is possible, because interface is bad, we've heard. I can also imagine some poor data entry hours that have to be done every time they touch Reigner or Diablo, because someone has to go update the tutorial mission to make sure that Diablo is doing the right abilities that he now has.
But they have done interface improvements in the recent past. I mean, things like armor icons that are rather
in game. That's again in game. The interface, like to get loaded in, that's where we hear the difficulty really is.
Oh, that's a good point.
So let's expand the try mode. We need a shaman camp. We need the squealy boys. What are they called? Not
the sappers.
No. I need that too.
Oh, but yeah.
What is a squealy boy? The Goatman?
The Goatman. Yes. I'm sure they have a more formal name than that.
Every boss, that is eluding me.
I just know in Diablo, the first time that you see them, they're like, those are Goatmen. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm calling them from now on.
And then they die. Yeah. Like let's add a hallway. We got our bottom there with all the camps. We got a third that's all the bosses, and a third that's range minion this, minion that, set game time bar there. Like, let's just let everybody have everything. Can I clear
what about
sandbox
mode on every map?
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah, like that just seems like something that should be there. I also just I saw, and I know they can't give us this, but I got to see what like the devs get access to as far as like try mode goes. And it's like, I'm curious what's the harm in giving us that. It's kind of what you're talking about. It has all of that stuff available. It didn't look very pretty. It was just a dirt all the way around. And it had access to like everything. And then it also had access to like all this extra other stuff. But it's like, I am curious, like what harm, and I know there's a dev out there that like has this exact answer, but like, he's probably just going to be like, I'm not going to say. But it's like, because again, you answer that question, it creates a wormhole of other questions. And they don't want to do that. But it's like, what harm would it be to give us that extensive try mode, even if it looks ugly? Is it just because it has more bugs? Maybe that's probably why.
It probably isn't even close to like having a bow on top of it in terms of stability, I bet.
Yeah, you're probably right. It probably is like a million bugs, but they just count out the bugs because they're like, oh, the reason this bug is occurring is because of this. It won't occur in the real game, but we won't know that. So we'll try it, because there's a lot of things that appear in try mode because there's no ping. So there's a couple bugs that happen in try mode, or a couple issues. Like one person brought up this thing with Tracer's reload, and they were like, or it was like this thing where they're like, oh, well, Tracer attacks 0.067853 times per second, and when she's doing this in try mode, but actually in game it's this, and it's like, so it could just be something like that, or there's just more cases of that. Yeah. I was like, and again, it's like, I don't know how these people find these.
I mean, a lot of this entire conversation could just be boiled down to like, we are discussing like form versus function. Like where do you concede one over the other for betterment? Like how much do you care about your UI being pretty and got a bow on top and easily readable versus just give it to me in a raw and hideous form so that I have the information that I need.
Yeah.
I'm fighting so many car analogies right now. I hope you know how much I love you, listeners.
And there's also an edge where maybe it's just bad for purchasing. Like how awesome, and it's now happened in our RPGs. Remember when you didn't have lighting to change when you were making your character? You couldn't spin the light around them. So Shepard walks onto the ship and it does that first spin around his face, and you're like, oh my God, I'm hideous.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this was going to be my lighting for the whole game. I'm butt ugly. Restart the game.
Animations is what always bothered me. Whenever there's facial expressions on like characters you made, everything looks perfect until the first time that they talk, and I go, I can't do it. I have to delete it.
they smile or something. You're like, ooh, man, I'm going with the set character. Yeah. So what if like they have studies done that like really intense try modes when people just jump in there to spin their character around, see their dance, and see if they want to purchase a certain color mecha URL like I just did. What if they have that data and they just say no? Complex try modes overwhelm people from spending dollars.
It could be that, honestly. Like, we don't have all the info, and at the end of the day, like, that's a lot of what it comes down to. That was something that I saw in one of the interviews with one of the devs, and he was just like, yeah, we have a lot of extra info that we see that sometimes contradicts info that's out there, and it's like, we can't always give that out because the reasons that we make changes are different, and it's like, it makes sense. So
I've heard every developer on every game I've ever covered say something like that. Because there's more factors than just like hard math based truths that go into balance changes in a game. So I mean, like, Genji is such a good poster child for it in this game. It's just that you've looked at his win rate across the history of his existence, and it's always been low, and yet the target of so many nerfs.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, we talked a little bit about the Mal'Ganis rework, but let's dig a little deeper. You were talking a bit about it there, Paradox. You said, I think this was before we actually started the show, that you thought Mal'Ganis' rework was going to be a little on the underpowered side.
Yep. I will gladly admit I was very, very wrong on this rework. I saw all of the nerfs. The talent seemed like they weren't strong enough at buffs to compensate for all the health nerf that he got, the damage nerf, all of that. And I was just like, he's going to do bad. And I talked to a couple other GMs that play a lot of Mal'Ganis, and they're like, it's bad. Like, in fact, Leon and Russ both said it's bad. But then Russ said, he's like, well, I don't know. I'm going to mess around with it now that like that level 4 talent with their armors lasts longer. And he's like, I think it's pretty good. And it was just interesting because it's like, I was like, I think it's going to be a big nerf. His win rate went up on hot slogs.
Yeah,
so.
it's not like Tracer levels of everyone kind of going, oh, this is a terrible rework, and then out the gate she's busted. But yeah, we've seen a net gain in Mal'Ganis' win rate for sure.
He definitely seems, it sounds weird, he seems like he's in a better place. He seems like he can die a little bit faster, but he's scarier. And I think that's where they want him to be. Now they just need to tone it down just a teeny bit more. Because Mal'Ganis is one of those that if he's above a 50% win rate, he feels oppressive. Because you just can't deal with him. You can't kill him as fast as he can heal himself. So he's one of those that I would be definitely glad to be just slightly under like 50%, just like 49, just because of that nature. Same thing with like Illidan. I'm always glad to see him just a little under, because when he is good, he's oppressive.
I agree. I had been seeing a decent amount of Mal'Ganis for about a month. So I don't think I've seen him in a game since the patch hit personally. But I
got to play some of them in ranked. It was good. It was great. I actually took blind as a bat because I can recover the cooldown and actually use it regularly enough to have an impact.
Good. That's good. That was one of the ones that I want to say when we talked about the rework was a bit of a sleeper talent that it had a pretty good win rate, even though it was underpicked. So that's good to hear.
I mean, I just like it for like the macro potential. Like, even if you ignore, okay, everyone's like, oh, we've got the dream in a team fight where you're in comms with someone and they're going to tell you where to go. It's like, let's ignore that for a second and just realize that if you pop blind as a bat while your team is sieging on a keep, you can do like 40% of the keep's health by yourself. If you pop blind as a bat on a bruiser camp, you can take it by yourself. Like, that's what I'm thinking of, is like just the macro potential of that talent is surprisingly good. And that's why I've always thought it was a little underrated when people started taking other stuff. I was like, but this talent's not bad, you know? But
well, let me hook you up with my secret, because, you know, people saying things in comms, they lie. They're never going to tell you where you're looking. Yeah. They're too busy doing their own thing. Frost Blast Kel'Thuzad can be seen while in blind as a bat. So you got that, you know, it's not Shadow Fissure, right? Frost Blast, we're not very into it, but you see a big old orb and it's flying towards somebody, and you know exactly where everyone's going because that one person is being chased by that orb. You just chase that orb, you're gonna find him.
I thought you were saying you go after the Kel'Thuzad that's casting it, but you're saying Kel'Thuzad's
He's
in
your
team.
ally, yeah.
Follow the orb around, yeah.
Wait, so
That's
you're
such a
saying
random, like synergy combo right there.
So
I like it.
You're saying you want to pull off this sick blind as a bat play, and the way you do it is convincing Kel'Thuzads of the world to abandon the way they're probably playing when they're matched with Amalgamus?
I mean, other than the Frost Blast pick, it's not that absurd. I mean, he does the Sleepies, and Kel'Thuzad really likes the Sleepy Towns because he can get stacked up. So the synergy is already like the old Decker thing we used to do. It's there.
Other than a heroic choice is what you just said.
Yes. Which
to be
20%
honest,
great.
I think Frost Blast is better than people make it out to be. It is a point and click route. Yes, it's slow, but they have sped it up. I just think the hard part is it doesn't synergize that well with what Kel'Thuzad wants to do. Like, if Frost Blast was on so many other heroes in this game, I think it would be overpowered. But the fact that it's on Kel'Thuzad makes it weak. So it's like if it was on, again, so many other mages, it would actually be very, very strong. If Orphea, instead of like her scoop in ult, had Frost Blast, that would be a must pick because it would synergize so well with her kit. And it would be an amazing engage for the team. But yeah, it's rough that it's on Kel'Thuzad because it's like you can combo off of it, but your combo is not going to be as strong without something that does like, what is it, like 500 damage baseline? Then you increase that by 75% or something. Like, it's
I mean, the other problem is everyone Kel'Thuzad's here. Please spread out and run away from him.
Right.
Hey,
like his combo is predicated on being caught out, being surprised, and that happening quickly. And Frost Blast is antithetical to that.
But if you're getting the entire team to adjust their, like, if they all spread out, then it's like you got to pick them down one by one, and it's like, so it's one of those ults. Like, there's a lot of ults that don't do a lot in themselves, but they create so much chaos that they end up being pretty good. Like Medivh's Polybomb, like, you throw that out and it's like everyone's, even if the enemy team plays perfectly, it's still a very advantageous ultimate ability. Like, they all spread out, but you still gain, like, they all move and you almost just got Horrify value, you know? Like, okay, I just casted Horrify on a 50-second cooldown that can be lowered with Talons. It's like, so it's kind of the same thing with Frost Blast. It's like, okay, I just casted a very slow Horrify. It's like
it's like analyzing something in a vacuum versus in practice, right? Like the poly from Medivh, like, when you just look at it by itself, you're like, this doesn't seem that good, and then you actually use it in a game and see the chaos that it ensues.
Really good.
Yeah. So, in closing on this conversation, I guess go Frost Blast with your Malganises.
If you learned anything from this entire Mal'Ganis conversation, is that Frost Blast is a good ultimate.
Well, as we kind of get to the end of the show here, let's get into emails and take a question.
Darkness stopped calling.
Darkness just texted me.
It's not the Mober, it's the Hero Brawler!
I can't wait for someone to yell that about the new Pokemon game. You can send your emails to itncast@gmail.com, or if you're a patron, you can drop us a message right there in the patron Discord. Skip the inbox entirely. Ramen Empire, which is where I would like to move. I would like to live in this empire. Writes in and says, you've spawned into the Nexus. Points for branding, Ramen. You find yourself exploring the outskirts of Braxis Outpost. Eventually, you end up locked into an abandoned Terrazine warehouse, and the Butcher is looking for you. Which hero would you want by your side, and do you become fresh meat? I mean, the hero I want by my side is the one that doesn't end in me becoming fresh meat. So, is this like pick the first letter of your first name and that's who's trying to kill you, and you pick the first letter of your last name and that's who's trying to protect you? Is that what Ramen Empire is teeing us up for right here?
In fact, I believe this is a very coy way of Ramen Empire saying, how do I counter the Butcher? But yeah, we're late into the game. I don't want to expose myself as someone who dies to Butcher. So I've created this situation where, who should I get to peel Butcher for me?
I like this. I like this quite a bit. Well played, Kyle.
It could also be a lore question, in which case that goes too far. So let's keep it in the game.
I'm gonna go with, because I've been playing it recently, I ended up in a game against Butcher last night and it was just gross. The Butcher never got to do a damn thing to me. I'm gonna go with Orphea.
It seems pretty good. And Orphea, I mean, if we do go by lore, that's kind of like Orphea's job, right? Like she's going out and hunting like these like monsters, and so she's probably pretty good at dealing with it, and she could adapt, watch the situation, see what he does. So yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Kyle.
Well, I don't want to be touched. Like, my butcher counters, it's gotten more difficult since the unstoppable thing happened, and I can't pre-blind him on his way in. So I'm going to take one hit at least after the charge if we're going blinds. And I don't like that because I don't think I have many hit points, honestly. As a normal human, probably not going to last very long. So my brain goes to time stops because that'll stop unstoppable. I got Chromie. Maybe we could get out of range. She pops it. A little hard to do. Maybe I just want Zeratul and we'll just run for the hills.
Oh, so you're going with an escape mechanism.
Yeah, I just want to get away from that. I just don't want to be touched. And I certainly, even if blind, I do not want like this towering inferno of a beast just screaming and wailing in my face.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd go with time stop.
Gotcha.
Yeah, time stop seems pretty good.
Time stop is good. I mean, yeah, I'm with Corny and Chowder. Why not just Medivh at that point? You just drop a gate and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. You can ley line seal that. That's a stasis.
You just turn him into a sheep, drop a portal, and leave.
Just get out of range. Yeah, let's do that. I like Medivh. Yeah.
Okay. Paradox, what's your answer?
Yeah. I'm gonna choose the Butcher.
Butcher be Butcher?
No, then he's on my team. He can't be against me, right?
Oh.
So then, like, there you go. Problem solved. No, I was thinking Lily until they made the blind change, and then I realized, like, yeah, that's probably the same. Like, seeing the size of the Butcher and the size of his axe, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't last one hit. Because I was like, Lily would be great. You blind long enough that you guys can get out, then you have some tea afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd die in the first hit. So unless Lily's timing that just right, I'd probably go with Uther, because then like Divine Shield, you can kind of leave him in the dust because then like he can heal you even after he dies, but then he might even come back depending on what level he is. He can stun him, and then you're out. So I'd probably go with like Uther. I think he would be pretty good for that. But I guess it just depends. Like if you're stuck and you like can never leave, you'd probably want to find someone that can kill Butcher, and like Uther, Lily, like I think that would be pretty rough. So, and I was thinking Joanna too, but it's like that's probably Medivh. I think Medivh could eventually do it and keep you alive at the same time if they're played out right. Then again, I mean that silence could probably kill a Medivh. I don't know.
We have to assume that they're in to help us, right? Because there's a good chance Medivh would be off doing his own thing, trying to get stacks, and we'd die anyway. So they have to be committed to our survival.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that Corny in the chat room wants to know if the Butcher is stacked yet.
I think
it was me, a human being. If it's me, a human being, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the Butcher's stacked. I'm going to die.
I'm not going to drop a lot of meat, so maybe I'm not worth it right now.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Remember your choices, because I have now gone over to Hot Slogs, and I'm looking at matchups on Butcher.
Okay.
Let's see how our choices pick. So, Kyle, what was your...
All right, let's rank our choices.
Kyle, what was your choice? Chromie?
It was Medivh.
Oh, it was Medivh.
Wait. You did Medivh, right?
I did Orphea.
Oh, okay, cool. So I did Medivh.
I thought you did Kira.
I think I did Chromie.
Wait, what? I want time stops, and then you convinced me about the portal away because I want to run away. So
it looks like I may have convinced you wrongly. Medivh does have a solid win rate. Well, this is Butcher I'm looking at. So Butcher has a sub 50% win rate against Medivh. This is the last 7 days. 46% win rate against Medivh's. Mr. Butcher.
Okay.
It's decent odds.
Yeah.
So I got a 54 chance to live. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's decent.
Paradox, what was your choice?
Uther.
Oh, I think it's not looking good because I'm having to control F to find it. Butcher has a almost 60% win rate against Uther in the last week.
Damn.
Oh, my friend Uther, you gotta.
Yeah, this is only 7 days, and it's only Butcher, so this is an extremely small sample size. So take all of this with a grain of salt, but it's fun to look at. And my pick was Orphea. with a 25% win rate against Orphea in the last week on Butcher.
Oh, congratulations.
Wow. You know, the only one that beats it out is Stukov. Stukov has the best chance of winning against a Butcher, apparently. Now, this is, of course, not in pure 1v1s. This is, there was an entire composition that led to these statistics, but...
Yeah, you have to let him connect there, so I'm still not a fan. I'd take my chances.
Yeah. The massive shove must be quite the... I mean, yeah, it ruins the Butcher's day. It does make a lot of sense. Like, even if you're a Sukov, you get chained, you can still massive shove. You're just like, oh, well, I'm stuck, but you don't get to wail on me, so goodbye, Butcher.
Yeah, and I mean, if you time it right, you can actually eat the chain for him and still get it and be unstoppable. So right as the push ends, you just walk away.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. This was fun. Fun question. Thank you, Ramen Empire. And then Gib is going to bring us home with the final question for today. Why is macro play sometimes derided as silly, quick match, nonsense, BS, especially on a hero like Sylvanas, who sacrifices 0 team fight ability for split push potential? And Kyle, I see you clean this up because Gib was shaming you in the Discord today.
Well, yeah, I was calling myself, performing quick match tomfoolery because I was we had a 2-level lead, so I was off taking a fort during the team fight, during the objective, and then I stole their camps. And as a personality idea, I guess, I call that's quick match shenanigans when Asmodan's solo pushing, Vala is wailing on a keep with no one else around. But you're not wrong. Like, that might be dismissive of what I'm actually performing, which is a great service for the team.
I don't think in reality, in a serious response, I think it's just a fun joke, and it's okay. I'm not offended.
Yeah, I think it's just something that you throw out there. Again, like I mentioned before, it's like the game's super nuanced. Like whether you should be getting that one last wave before joining the team, or if you should immediately join the team, is very nuanced, especially in the early game where team fights can drag out a long time and waves of soak are super important. But yeah, I think when you see someone that's doing something that's like, okay, we've all been fighting on this objective for a long time, and you've just been like, you're playing Ana AFK attacking a tower when we need a healer. It's like there's a point where you can make a joke that just says it's silly, it's quick match, because that is the case. But yeah, I mean it definitely just depends on a million things, and it's a fun thing to bring out there. But macro is never silly. It's just that like it needs to actually be macro. I think it gets silly when people are off. Like again, when I see like an Ana doing a camp, it's like, sure, you can do it without dying, but it's going to take you 5 minutes to do it. Same thing with Stitches. It's like, sure, you can do a bruiser camp without dying. It's just going to take you 5 minutes to do it. So it's like you're technically doing macro, but you're just doing the least efficient macro possible. And that's where people might call out like, oh, this is some nonsense over there. That's a little silly that you're going for that. And I think that's where like the jokes start coming from,
To me, it's like it can't end. There's Merc camps up. That's where the joke comes from for me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the right. It is actually the right time to do it, especially like the earlier the game is. Even if it's like, hey, we've got an exposed keep. It's like, yeah, depending on the situation, it still might be the right call to go Merc. But you might make a joke and be like, all right, quick match Merc time. Let's go.
Yeah,
I do think there have been a lot of fun ideas floating around about the next anomaly possibly targeting Merc camps and buffs. Like, what if after doing a Merc camp, you got a damage buff to only heroes? Like, how can we encourage these players who, like, we all know that Sonya, who just doesn't really like the PvP game of Heroes of the Storm, but they damn like that PvE game. And it has a place, it has a surface, particularly in, like, our current solo matchup. That's not a very dangerous place. You soak, you heal, you run away. Like, you might get a kill if you're feeling awesome and you have a bad matchup, but you get to camping and you're just in your own world.
No, it's true. I mean, there could be more to camps, and I mean, maybe for an anomaly, like camps get so important that you might actually put like a person on that role. like it's now your job. Like maybe they decrease their respawn of camps, give them all like something that helps you in the late game other than just having camps, and now you have one person dedicated to it. And you might even run like someone that goes around trying to take out the other person working on camps. Like that could definitely be something there. I have found right now, like I've been watching more and more replays where people are still putting a priority on camps in the late game. And like I try to show them that like a camp in the late game usually just gets free cleared without like any issue whatsoever. So it's like I try to tell people like early game camps are awesome, but like late game camps, like just go for structures. So you get 3 kills, don't go to camps, just get a structure. And that gets you closer to winning the game, where like camps, like especially the time it takes, like you grab a camp and oftentimes they have to like walk around, get in lane, walk all the way up to the point. It's like that takes 20 seconds, and it's like there goes the respawn time of the people that you just killed, and now it gets free cleared. It's like, especially in the late game.
That's why I'd like to see an anomaly that messes with camps, and frankly, I'd almost like it to be more straightforward. Just make the camps beefy, scary, make them move a little quicker, activate faster, scale better.
Hey, if catapults can scale in like 5 different ways, maybe we can make camps do the same thing. Maybe the camps get up to 11 range after your team hits level 25 or whatever.
You blew my mind with that. I didn't know the catapults behave that way.
Go to the wiki one time and click on catapults under the wiki, and you'll see the weirdest things from catapults. It's like, it's really weird.
What if we gave our camps an anomaly that made them work like Garden of Terror, Tomb of the Spider Queen, where they became essence and flew through the air to the point where the lane was pushed?
Oh, that's interesting.
And that removes all the problems, right? Like, or some of the problems we have with clearing things in the first place. Is you get to the objective, you're fighting around, and it goes ding, ding, ding. Oh no, Greymane took a camp.
Because you can grab the entire map worth of camps, even if you're all the way pushed forward. Because when you're all the way pushed forward, you grab your like siege camp all the way over here. It's like, oh, I'll see that in a year. So it's like,
as a defender, you're like, when do I go deal with this?
I don't know how much of a change that would make on like that would definitely make camps more valuable about trying to end the game, especially if you're like if you have fast camp clears or globals. Like a Falstad could like be like, oh, we just started winning, I'm gonna go bribe this camp, and like we're already pushed, I'm gonna bribe the camp and then jump to the team. It's like that's a great way to like close out the game earlier, but I don't know how much of a difference that would make like outside of like you're closing out the game and you're trying to find a way to like close it out just a teeny bit faster. I like the idea of just like, let's make camps just scale like even scarier. Like bosses, you get a late game boss, the thing has more health than the core. It's like, let's get the bruiser camps to be like, oh, that 20% spell armor. Well, guess what? After you hit level 20, that's 75% spell armor. Now let's see teams fighting within those camps. You know, now let's see the opposing team going, okay, we actually do need to kill this mage minion first. And so we got to figure out a way to do this.
Should probably also give something for defending a camp wave at that point, because I think the reason we don't have that is snowball concerns, right? Because when you do dominate the map, you just have access to every single merc camp, and there's a more feeling like my feeling is that I should be way more terrified when I'm on the back foot and 3 lanes of merc camps get taken. Should be like, oh crap, here it comes. But right now I just go, we'll burn through it really quick. And
it's like they're bringing the experience to us. Like that's what most people like. If you watch like the competitive scene, if the opposing team wipes your team, so if you're level 20 and you have a keep but you don't have a fort, and you wipe a team, you can end the game with any standard composition. If you can wipe the team at level 20, and there's it doesn't matter if the front walls are there, because guess what? You're going to destroy the side wall. Who cares about the turrets? You're going to destroy the side wall. You're going to walk past. You're going to kill the keep from behind, and you're going to get the core down 75% before the enemy team even respawns, because the death timer is that long. And that's the big problem, is like that potential always exists, but most people don't abuse it. But that potential always exists. So it's like we want to be worried about that snowball potential of the camps, but in reality, that potential is already there. It's just that people don't know to abuse it. So camps would at least give you something that's like, oh, we hit level 20s first because of my macro play, and everyone's going to go get camps and waste that. It's like, it'd be nice to have those camps be like, oh, everyone's going to go get camps that are going to be a big threat. And it's like, so I do think having camp scale better would be better, but I do agree that like, we also hit that point where it's like, if we reach that late game and you're down even one level to 20 to 19, it feels bad. Because like you want a turtle, but if they get every camp on the map, it's like your play to turtle is now really, really risky. So it is a back and forth, but it's like how many catch-up mechanics in the game is too much. We already have the experience thing where if you get a kill while you're behind, you get more experience. And there already needs to be a value on the early game, right? There needs to be something that you can gain to have an advantage. But I don't know. It is definitely a problem of still having that snowball effect. I think all MOBAs have that issue. League, there's just so much gold to be had in the early game, and then it's the same amount of gold in the late game, pretty much, as far as kills are concerned.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you for your questions, everybody. Again, keep them coming. itncast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, drop them in the patron Discord. And that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. Speaking of our patrons, thank you again so much for the support. If you want to support Into the Nexus, patreon.com/ITN is the place to do so. Thank you very much for it. We get to pay our guests for their time and all kinds of other things. Thanks to your support. Also, thank you to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., Mike C., and Eric C. If you want to catch up on back catalog of episodes, anything else, other shows, go check out amove.tv. You can follow the show on Twitter @ITNcast. But before we go, NotParadox, as our returning guest today, where can everyone find you and all your awesome Heroes content?
Yeah, so the majority of the content you can find from me is on YouTube. I do educational content for Heroes of the Storm, and I've hit 95% of the roster. I've got like over 300 or something videos all on that. I do my best to keep stuff updated whenever there's a new patch. I try to hit all the heroes in that patch, as well as I do patch videos to make sure that all of that. So if you ever just want to stay up to date, you can always check out that. If you want to learn a new hero, I've got guides. I usually will pull in a competitive player when I do a guide, whether just I'm looking at his play, or in some cases, like for Uro, I've actually brought in the #1 player to do that. So yeah, check out my YouTube, youtube.com/NotParadox. If you want to follow me anywhere else on social, you can Google NotParadox. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. My Twitter is mostly just like me sharing random psychology stuff, so it's probably not too relevant to HOTS, but I mean, hey, if you're interested in that, you can see that for sure.
Kyle, what about you, dude?
I will advertise this week, twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson, where you can find a lot of coordinated play going down right now. Last night I subbed in for an NGS team, previously the CCL. Monday nights right now are practice for my upcoming NGS and Heroes Lounge team. So there's still solo queue happening over on that channel. It's its own personality and its own game. But there's also now a lot of 5 stacking happening over there. And we're learning all sorts of new things. Lots of solo lane, lots of off lane business. Check it out. Twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson.
Nice. Follow me on Twitter @GarrettArt. I'd really like to pimp hotslogs.com. Go there, install the uploader. The stats will be better the more folks are uploading their replays to Hotslogs. We have May up already. It's only been a day or two, so stats are still rolling in. But we are bringing back the premium features. So if you want to get rid of ads, that will be up and running very soon. Should be up by the weekend if it's not up already. So head on over to hotslogs.com, and we also just launched a public Discord. So you can go to bit.ly/discordlogs is a little bit.ly I set up for that. If you have a support question, you just want to hang out, want to meet other Heroes players, another place you can go and chill. So go to hotslogs.com, check it out, learn some stats, try a new hero. Premium is live now. Jeremy, one of our devs, is in the chat right now saying Premium is indeed live. So go to your profile page if you're interested in becoming a Hotslogs Premium member. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We will be back next week. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.